The heart of Stonehenge originated from northeastern Scotland rather than southwest Wales. The discovery shows that its construction was a far greater collaborative effort than scientists believe.
For centuries, Stonehenge has been wrapped in rumour, ritual and raw speculation, but the newest scientific evidence is bolder than any legend. Recent lab work, field digs and precision scans point to a stunning conclusion that rewrites who built it, how they moved it, and why it mattered.
It's one of the most famous prehistoric monuments in the world, and also one of the most mysterious. Why was Stonehenge built in southwest England 5,000 years ago?
We'll ask the questions many avoid. Were these stones really dragged by ice, or by people with a master plan? Was Stonehenge a cosmic clock, a soundstage for secret rites, or both? If you're drawn to buried truths, high-stakes debates, and behind-the-scenes arguments, this is for you. Human hands, not ice. For more than a century, one of the fiercest debates around Stonehenge revolved around the origin of its smaller stones, the so-called blue stones. Were they left behind by retreating glaciers, scattered like natural breadcrumbs across the Salisbury Plain? Or were they deliberately carried, hauled across nearly 150 miles of rugged land by Neolithic builders with a vision? The answer seemed out of reach, until one overlooked rock became the key that unlocked the mystery. That stone is known as the Newall boulder, discovered about 100 years ago and long dismissed as an anomaly. For decades, geologists argued about whether it was just a glacial erratic, an accidental traveller dragged south by ice sheets thousands of years ago. But when scientists recently re-examined it with cutting-edge geochemical and microscopic analysis, the results were jaw-dropping. The Newall boulder's chemical signature matched perfectly to a specific outcrop in Wales called Craig Ross E. Felin. Its trace elements, including thorium and zirconium, were identical, leaving no doubt about its birthplace. This wasn't a random stone dropped by ice, it was carefully chosen, cut and transported by human hands. The discovery didn't stand alone. The same team compared fragments buried at Stonehenge, including stone 32D, once thought to be a different rock type altogether. The analysis revealed that it wasn't dolerite as previously believed, but the same foliated rhyolite as the Newall boulder. Even more telling, its surface chemistry showed high calcium carbonate deposits from centuries underground in chalk soil, consistent with long burial after deliberate placement, not glacial scatter. Piece by piece, the evidence lined up. These blue stones weren't scattered by nature. They were moved, placed, and integrated into a monument that was being built with staggering intent. Skeptics, of course, point out the scale of the task. How could Neolithic people, with no wheels, no beasts of burden, and no metal tools, possibly transport multi-ton stones across such a distance? Yet the argument crumbles when compared to other feats they achieved. The Sarsens, the towering stones weighing more than 20 tons each, were brought from West Woods about 20 miles away. Even more astonishing, the altar stone travelled nearly 470 miles from Scotland, one of the longest prehistoric transport routes ever attempted. If communities of the time could move stones of that magnitude, hauling 2 to 3 ton blue stones from Wales was not only possible, it was almost easy by comparison. We also know from ethnographic studies of other indigenous societies that long-distance transport of massive stones is achievable with simple technology. Wooden sledges, ropes twisted from natural fibers, wooden rollers, and carefully prepared trackways. What seems impossible to modern eyes was, for ancient communities, a test of organization, determination, and shared purpose. It wasn't brute strength alone, but coordination, villages uniting, pulling together, quite literally, to achieve something greater than themselves. And perhaps that's the real clue. If the stones were transported not by ice, but by intention, then the builders weren't just erecting rocks in a field. They were encoding meaning, shaping a monument whose purpose demanded extraordinary sacrifice. Every blue stone at Stonehenge is not simply a geological block. It's a testament to deliberate planning and cultural vision. If these stones were carried with such intent, then the question becomes clear. What exactly were they building toward? The answer doesn't just lie in the ground, it shines in the sky, written in sunlight itself. Blueprint in the sun. If the blue stones prove intent, the sarcens reveal design. These towering blocks, some weighing more than 20 tons, aren't scattered haphazardly. They form a circle so precise that archaeologists now believe it encodes something far more ambitious than simple ritual space. It's a calendar carved in stone, a perpetual machine for tracking the rhythm of the sun. At the heart of this revelation lies the Sarsen Circle, a ring of 30 massive uprights linked by horizontal lintels. Each stone, researchers argue, represents a single day. Taken together, they create a 30-day cycle that mirrors the Neolithic concept of a month. But the builders didn't stop there. Two stones, slightly different in shape, break the otherwise perfect pattern, marking the start of new weeks. And these weren't 7-day weeks as we know them today, they were 10-day segments. In this rhythm, 3 weeks made a month, and 12 months gave 360 days. Of course, that left 5 days unaccounted for. This is where the trilithon horseshoe, the iconic cluster of 5 massive uprights crowned by lintels at the center, enters the story. Each of these colossal stones represents one of those extra days, the epigomenal stretch that turns 360 into 365. For ancient people, these weren't ordinary days. They were festival markers, a sacred pause in the cycle when communities could celebrate, worship, or remember. They were moments out of time, deliberately emphasized by placing them in the very heart of the monument. But the builders went even further. Every solar year is not exactly 365 days, but about 365.25. Without correction, a calendar drifts out of sync with the seasons. And yet, evidence suggests that Stonehenge's architects accounted for this with the station stones, 4 megaliths that form a rectangle on the outer boundary of the site. Their placements hint at a leap day correction, an extra day added every 4 years to keep the entire system aligned with the sun's cycle. It implies that the builders of Stonehenge, some 4,000 years ago, were not only able to track the solar year, but also were skilled enough to construct a monument able to maintain its accuracy over a number of centuries, decades, if not centuries, we are still talking of. The implications are much more significant than this. In a world without a written calendar, calendars were not merely records in books or scrolls. They were tangible, visible, and monumental. To embed a timekeeping system into stone means that it survived generation after generation, guiding farmers in planting or harvesting, priests in executing ceremonies, and leaders in calling forth their people. The rhythm of the year was not only about practicalities, it was also profoundly political. He who controls the calendar controls society's rhythm. Imagine a gathering at the solstice, hundreds of people coming into Salisbury Plain. Leaders stand between the stones in the center, proclaiming the beginning of a festival or the start of counting a season. The monument itself validates their words, as the sun rises or sets in perfect alignment. This wasn't just architecture, it was authority, encoded in rock and light. Stonehenge, then, is more than a pile of stones. It is a perpetual calendar, an ancient time machine, designed to bridge the cycles of the sky with the lives of people on Earth. And that kind of careful planning raises an even bigger question. If the builders aligned their stones so precisely to the sun, what else inspired their vision? A calendar. This careful hints at a deeper origin story, one that begins far from Salisbury Plain. The circle that moved. If the bluestones prove that people, not glaciers, carried the weight of Stonehenge's creation, then discoveries in Wales revealed just how far those ambitions reached. Archaeologists working in Pembrokeshire uncovered the remnants of a dismantled stone circle at a site called Wan Morn. Its stones were aligned with the sun, echoing the same solar precision seen at Stonehenge. The geology told an even stronger story. The rocks matched perfectly with the bluestones standing in Wiltshire today. This was no coincidence. It suggested something astonishing. An entire sacred circle had been taken apart and carried east, stone by stone, over 150 miles. The evidence became undeniable with the discovery of a single chipped fragment near the Welsh quarry. When researchers compared it with one of Stonehenge's bluestones, the piece slotted in like a missing puzzle fragment. It was the kind of proof that archaeologists dream of, a literal link between two sacred sites separated by distance and time. The find strongly supports the idea of migration, of a community relocating and bringing not just their belongings, but their most sacred monument with them. This wasn't simply construction, it was cultural transfer, memory made physical, and it unfolded around 3000 BCE. What does it mean for a people to carry their circle with them? It means the stones weren't just rock, they were heritage. They held identity, connection, and the voices of ancestors. To dismantle a circle and rebuild it on new ground was to transplant a living tradition, ensuring continuity even as landscapes changed. It hints that Stonehenge is not just a monument of stone, but a monument of movement, marking both the journey and the destination of its builders. The timeline of Stonehenge's development deepens this story. Long before the Sarsens were raised, the site already bore traces of significance. Post holes dug into the chalk date back thousands of years earlier, evidence of wooden markers that may have been used for ceremonies or alignments. Later, the site became one of the largest Neolithic cremation cemeteries in Britain, a landscape where death and memory were inscribed into the ground. Only after these earlier phases did the great Sarsen stones arrive, transforming the site into the form we recognize today. In this sense, the sequence speaks volumes. The making of Stonehenge was not completed in a jiffy. It was not commissioned and completed over one generation in one building project. It was built over many centuries, conditioned by changing practices and the arrival of new people and the merging of communities. Each phase laid meaning upon the last, and even constructed buildings, whether raising posts, laying bluestones, or hauling sarsens, were as important as the final product. This became a monument-prolonged tie, a physical reminder of cooperation and continuity in shared identity across generations. Imagine the sight. Crowds of people coming on Salisbury Plain, some from around, others arriving with their precious stones from distant Wales. They worked together, digging ditches, getting ready platforms, hauling blocks. There was no just labour marriage. It was a ritual of joining. It was the process itself that stitched societies tight, bonds made as lasting as the stones they raised. And so, Stonehenge grew. Not a stagnant design, but a living adventure, a story unfolded in stages, migrations, and memories. But once the circle stood in its new home, its purpose shifted again. Moving a circle preserves stories, yet the true experience came not from where the stones were placed, but from what it felt like to stand within them. The stones themselves whisper the answer. Built for sound. Stonehenge has always been seen as a visual marvel, but recent experiments reveal that it may have been just as powerful for the ears as for the eyes. To test its acoustic secrets, researchers from the University of Salford built a 1:12 precision replica of the monument, nicknamed Mini-Henge. Every missing stone was restored in its ancient position, every gap and curve faithfully recreated. When they placed the model in a controlled acoustic chamber and tested sound, the results stunned even seasoned scientists. Inside the ring, voices and music carried with extraordinary clarity. The stones amplified sound by more than 4 decibels, enough to make a noticeable difference, while at the same time blocking out most of the noise from the outside world. Conversations or chants made at the center could be heard perfectly by those inside, yet barely at all by those beyond the circle. It was as if the monument created a sacred sound bubble, preserving ritual for the few who stood within. For an audience of insiders, the effect must have been unforgettable. What makes this even more fascinating is that the effect was remarkably resilient. Researchers tested different stone arrangements, reflecting how the monument changed over time as stones were moved, added, or lost. To their surprise, the soundscape inside stayed much the same. The experience of intimacy, of amplified voices and hushed resonance endured across variations. This suggests that while acoustics may not have been the primary reason for the monument's design, they became a lasting feature. an element of the experience that remained constant even as the site evolved. But Stonehenge's acoustic story doesn't end with amplification. Certain stones, often referred to as ringing stones, have been found to produce bell-like tones when struck. In modern experiments, these blocks have been played like a giant xylophone, producing metallic gong-like sounds that echo through the air. One study even suggested that these stones may have been selected not only for their location or durability, but for their sound qualities. Imagine a ceremony where the stones themselves were instruments, resonating as part of the ritual. It would have been much more than practical, most likely theatrical. Imagine a midsummer gathering, drums beating, chants rising, and the stones themselves humming when struck. Inside, this sound envelops people, binding them together within the moment. Onlookers outside see it all pass by, but only catch a faint echo of the event, making the gap between the initiated and lay observer all that stronger. Stonehenge becomes not only a stage set for celestial alignment, but also a theatre of sound and hallucinations, where stone, voice, and sky merged into one experience. We are used to thinking about Stonehenge in certain ways. It was not simply going to be a monumental representation of the heavens or a mark in the seasons, to be experienced instead. There was sound engineering, designed for people within it. The makers recognized that ritual was multisensory, not just what one saw, but also what one heard, felt, and how all of that worked together to elevate one's senses. The sun set the schedule, sound set the mood, but the moon may have set the drama's rarest acts. Moon's secret rhythm. For centuries, Stonehenge has been celebrated for its solar alignments, especially the dramatic midsummer sunrise over the heel stone and the winter solstice sunset over the winter stone solstice sunset slipping between the megaliths. But new research suggests the builders may have reached for more than the sun. They may have reached for the moon itself. And not just the everyday waxing and waning moon, but its rarest rhythm of all, the major lunar standstill. A lunar standstill happens only once every 18.6 years, when the moon's rising and setting points reach their furthest extremes on the horizon. To recognize this pattern requires extraordinary patience, a dedication to observation across decades. Researchers from Oxford, Leicester, and Bournemouth universities are now testing whether Stonehenge was designed to capture these moon extremes. They're focusing on the station stones, 4 megaliths placed in a rectangular formation, and the horizon lines visible through the circle. If the theory is correct, the builders engineered Stonehenge not only as a solar calendar, but as a dual instrument for charting the most elusive cycles of the sky. Clues reach deep into Stonehenge's earliest phases. Archaeologists have noted that many burials cluster in the southeast corner of the site, the very spot where the moon touches the horizon during a major standstill. These cremation deposits date back to around 3000 BCE, long before the Great Sarsens were erected. It suggests that lunar significance may have been woven into the site's meaning from the very beginning. Later, when the station stones and central Sarsens were added around 2500 BCE, they may have locked this lunar rhythm into stone, ensuring that generations could witness the spectacle with precision. What would it have felt like to watch? Imagine standing within the ring on one of these rare nights. The moon, swollen and strange, rises or sets at its most extreme point, perfectly framed by the stones. Shadows stretch across the circle, light pooling and breaking in ways that occur only a few times in a lifetime. For Neolithic people, such an event would have been breathtaking, a cosmic drama, both predictable and miraculous. It was a moment when heaven bent close to earth and the stones themselves confirmed the connection. The fact that Stonehenge still captures these alignments today is nothing short of extraordinary. Despite centuries of missing stones, theft, vandalism, and even misguided restorations, the monument remains accurate enough to frame celestial events across millennia. It has been dismantled and rebuilt, damaged and defended, yet the sky continues to perform its ancient choreography through the same windows of stone. In this way, Stonehenge is not a fossilized ruin, but a living instrument, still tuned to rhythms older than history. And this resilience makes the message clear. Stonehenge was never meant to be just one thing. Not only a temple, not only a cemetery, not only a calendar. It was all of these and more, a multi-layered design that brought together transport feats, solar calculations, soundscapes, and lunar mysteries. It was an attempt to hold the universe in place, to bridge the cosmic cycles with the human story on Earth. When you map, transport, time, sound, and sky together, Stonehenge stops being a riddle and becomes a design. Stonehenge is no longer just an unsolved mystery. The evidence shows human transport, a solar calendar, a circle that migrated, a theatre of sound, and even a monument tuned to the moon. Together, these findings reveal not a random pile of stones, but a carefully engineered design linking people, Earth, and sky. If this journey opened your eyes, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more hidden histories uncovered by science. And when you're ready, watch the next video on your screen for another story that changes everything you thought you knew.